Hey guys, Dr. Alex Ritza here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about shoulder pain. Anterior impingement pain you get in the front of your shoulder. It's one of the most common complaints that we see outside of the spine, and is also one of the most complex issues to deal with as a corrective chiropractor, because shoulder problems, they're complicated. And the reason they're complicated is that by the time that you have pain here, usually there's been a number of changes in the spine, in the nervous system, in the way the shoulder complex moves, and in the shoulder itself that leads to all these mechanical changes that eventually leads to dysfunction and to pain. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the 4 things that often need to be addressed with shoulder pain and with shoulder issues. And we're going to be talking about a couple of solutions that you can potentially use at home to deal with this yourself. So, as I say always, let's get into it. So guys, before we go into a couple of the drills that you can try to help with your shoulder pain, let's talk about the changes that usually occur before somebody starts to get impingement syndrome in their shoulder. And in my experience, this is almost universal, whether we're talking about a young man or woman in university that starts getting this pain with surfing, with sports, or generally with doing chest and bench type exercises, or if it's my 60-year-old mom or dad and they start to get pain with reaching overhead. And usually there's 4 changes that occur that lead to shoulder pain, or at least 4 changes that we see with shoulder cases. So number 1, one of the most common changes we see is a problem with the neck and the nerves of the neck. The nerves of the neck are what actually provide the sensation to the shoulder and also power the shoulder muscles on. And usually we find irritation in the neck, putting stress on the nerves that go to the shoulder and come up from the shoulder. This changes the way that the shoulder muscles turn on. It also changes the sensitivity of the nerves that travel up to your brain. These irritated nerves in the neck make the shoulder more sensitive and make us more likely to experience pain. Another change that we see that's well documented in the literature is an anterior shift of the neck and a rounding of the thoracic spine. This is going to change the mechanics of how the shoulder blade sits. As we get more shifted forward, the shoulder blade tilts forward. With that tilting forward of the shoulder blade, it actually leaves for less physical room for the tendons and the muscles and everything to move in the front of the shoulder, leaving it more likely to get pinched or to get impinged upon. So usually we see that anterior spinal shift, that rounding of the thoracic spine, somebody shifted, and that makes the shoulder not function as well. That also changes the way that the muscles interact with the shoulder, because it changes their origin and their attachment, but the path that the shoulder muscles travel down, and changes their mechanics. Usually we also see, number 3, changes in the way that the shoulder blade itself moves, whether it's one or all 17 of the 17 or 18 muscles, depending how you look on it, that attach onto the shoulder blade. Often the movement of the shoulder blade changes. It could be from, again, that shift forward in the spine, or it could be a consequence of just different muscles not functioning properly, being too tight in one area, too loose and weak in another. Usually it's associated with some changes in the thoracic spine and the nerves that lead from those as well. But what can happen is, instead of, or the usual 180 degrees of shoulder abduction or shoulder flexion, the shoulder blade should account for half to 2/3 of that. Half to about 1/3 of that. And if that shoulder blade doesn't rotate or move properly, it's going to put more stress on the shoulder or the glenohumeral joint. If the shoulder blade stops moving, the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joint has to make up for the rest of it. And so often what we notice is when we do some testing for the shoulder blade, it might start to get stuck here. And as a consequence, the shoulder joint gets overworked and it has to really force and do the rest of the movement. Rather than moving its normal, let's say 90 degrees, it's forced to move 120 and it pinches at the end. So when that shoulder blade stops moving properly, it's going to be problems for the shoulder. And then last but not least, usually we find changes in the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joint itself where somebody's actually having the pain. But in my experience, usually this is a consequence of some sort of change in the neck, in the spine, or in the shoulder blade, and this is just dysfunction that occurs as a result of those other changes. It's just collateral damage for a core problem in the spine that already exists. So we've gone over those 4 things, and you can see already, shoulders are complicated. Now, if you take the more traditional approach to managing your shoulder, you just deal with the shoulder, odds are you're probably going to get some relief. And if you don't have really sinister things going on elsewhere in the spine, if there's not a core problem, if somehow those other 3 or 4 things are not happening, you might get complete relief. But in my experience, the comprehensive approach that we take in our office to deal with the core problem, the complete picture, usually we have close to 100% success rate with shoulders because we help to make sure that everything starts to function properly, and that not only do we deal with some of the collateral damage here in the shoulder, but we actually fix the core problem. So that's some food for thought. Now, I want to go over one drill, and then I'm going to recommend some other drills that we've talked about in the past that you can look up on YouTube or look up on Instagram. And so the one drill I want to go over is we're going to go over how to use a dowel, a hockey stick, a golf stick, any sort of straight object to help improve movement in your shoulder. So for this team, what we're going to need, in this case, I think it's a mop, a telescoping extension. You can use a golf club, a hockey stick, anything that's straight like this. And this drill is going to help improve our overall shoulder mobility. And the idea with this is we're going to use the bottom hand to be pushing this shoulder, or whatever shoulder we're talking about, into a further range of motion. Now, the idea with this is the top hand simply rests on top, the bottom hand is what does the pushing. Now, this is going to help improve some movement and mobility in the shoulder and the shoulder blade, and also allow you to practice doing so with a nicely stacked up perfect spine. If it hurts, cease and desist, stop, tells you there's something wrong in the shoulder, obviously, go see a professional. We'll also, after this, talk about a couple other drills that you can do. But with this, I really like this drill because, we can bring the shoulder up in a clockwise pattern from 12 o'clock to 11, 10, and you get the idea. And it's going to stretch out a lot of the tissues that might limit how this shoulder moves, either the tissues that hold the shoulder blade down or actually the joint capsule and the shoulder itself. It feels good, it's great for improving our mobility, it's a good preventative drill, and as you can see, my top hand, it is just along for the ride. My bottom hand is what is doing the work, and we can even do some figure eights and get creative, and this is going to help to improve our shoulder mobility and that movement through the shoulder joint. Also a great way to stretch out your tricep muscle. Top hand along for the ride, bottom hand pulling down nicely, trying at different angles to get a good stretch through that triceps, and you can just hold that nicely and you'll get a good stretch through there. So that's a good shoulder mobility drill that we haven't talked about. If you're looking to address some of the other parts of the spine, the core problem that might be contributing to your shoulder issue, that's where you want to do some stretches through the side of the neck. We've talked about our chair stretch before, holding onto the chair, lean the body away, lean the neck away. Practicing good posture when we're lifting. When we're lifting, making sure that when we do anything overhead, our arms are not back here, but rather in line with the angle of the shoulder blade, 20 degrees forward, so that when we push overhead, it's not jamming the shoulder back here. We also want to improve our mid-back mobility or our thoracic spine mobility, and that is where we're going to be doing things like foam rolling along the spine, doing our reach back, and also improving our thoracic mobility and strength with such drills such as the bird dog or the quadruped position that we've covered in the past and that will link. So if you've got a shoulder issue, try doing some of those drills first. Try using your dowel, your hockey stick to improve the mobility through your shoulder. See if that helps. But if there's a core problem with the spine and the nervous system and the shoulder's just collateral damage to that, you're going to need to see a professional. If you need to see somebody in Toronto, we've got you covered. And if you need to see somebody outside of Toronto, send me a message. Maybe we can find somebody great for you. But otherwise, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Be sure to message me or email me if you have any further questions. And as always, we will talk soon.